Debs.
Laura, you all right?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, actually. I've been thoroughly enjoying our conversations we've been having, not just with our guests, but also on this topic that we started. It's been amazing to listen to what people are doing to help them cope. And I think it's just been it's such a great topic. I've loved it, Laura.
Yeah, so have I. And just to refresh, this is going to be the second in our 4-part focus, looking at healthy coping mechanisms. I just want to give everyone a heads up. This episode does include references to suicide, bereavement and grief. So if this isn't for you right now, we'll see you on the next one. And this guest, it's going to be incredible to listen to Tom in conversation with you, Debs, because Tom was one of those gems that shone when we were running the Healthy Coping Mechanisms workshop at the start of the year, which is where we got people together in a rail operations centre environment, really busy, really pressured. And it was just incredible, wasn't it? The conversation that Tom started with us afterwards. And at that point, Debs, we just knew we got to get Tom in conversation, talking with you, particularly around coping using healthy mechanisms, particularly when you are living with grief after maybe the worst has happened. And what does that then mean to be able to process and then live life afterwards?
Yeah, Chef, it was incredible. Should we take a listen, Laura? So welcome, everyone. We are absolutely delighted to be able to be speaking to real people, as we said last time, who have got a real passion around mind health, mental health, well-being, resilience, and what that means to be able to cope healthily in the world of work. And as Laura and I said, we were able to spend some amazing time with some incredible people who live and breathe this stuff every single day, inside and outside of work. And as you can see, I'm delighted to have a guest with me today. Yay. So Tom, welcome to our podcast. Tell our listeners a little bit about who are you and what do you do?
Well, thanks for having me, Debs. My name's Tom. I am 29. I work for Network Rail, and I joined when I was 18 as an apprentice, sort of working in the electrical distribution side of the railway. And about 6-7 months ago, I joined a control room in Network Rail at Three Bridges in Crawley, and my job title is I'm an incident controller. So what that is I manage all sort of incidents, accidents and emergencies that sort of happen across the railway network, predominantly for me where I'm based across sort of the southeast of England and into London and through the core of London. So anything sort of infrastructure wise or incidents that happen on the railway, people going on the line, accidents that happen on the line is kind of our job as incident controllers to kind of manage the response to that. Obviously try and keep a train service running and get all sort of personnel to where they need to be to manage that incident as sort of smoothly and calmly as possible.
Yeah, and I must admit, I mean, I have been on the trains, as I mentioned to you when we met you in our training session, and the way it's handled is just incredible. And I think we did not appreciate by any stretch of the imagination, I'm sure loads of people are listening in, unless you're in your world, you have no idea about, one, the amount of people that are involved, what happens, how quickly you respond to different things, but also then how do you deal with the aftermath of that? So when you're thinking about, when we were talking about healthy coping mechanisms in particular, I suppose what was it and why does this topic mean so much to you? Because dealing with incidents, you see it all the time. You must be at the front end of it, and it must be pressure on a whole nother level that a lot of us won't even go. So how important is this topic for you?
I think extremely important. I think especially with my new role, but even in my old role, you know, dealing with how trains are getting power is basically the basis of it. Before was important to me because, you know, it is the bit, like you say, that people don't see. People might know that, you know, trains are powered by electricity, but they don't realise obviously the infrastructure behind that and who might be responding to keep that going when there is faults and failures. So I always took that part of my job very seriously, and the impact that it sort of has on passengers and the general public, you know, using the service. But now I'm opened up to an entirely new world, and like you say about people not really having an idea about through no fault of their own, what is going on in the background. It was the same for me coming from a maintenance background to then what we call operations within Network Rail.
Right.
I didn't really have an idea about the operations side of things.
Okay.
But I've always been a person who I love incidents and love sort of going to things that then go wrong. So the environment up there, I've kind of been able to really just kind of fall into it quite naturally in that I love that environment, and I like to think I'm quite a good communicator, and that sort of environment, you really are kind of tested. Completely new for me. You've got people from the GTR side, so like the train operating company side, the Network Rail side. There's a room full of people that all have kind of different goals and objectives. We've ultimately, our main goal for all of us is to run the train network. But, we all have different jobs in that room. And so it can be quite high pressure, high tension.
Yeah.
So healthy coping mechanisms in that environment is extremely important. You're working in a room full of anywhere between sort of 50 and 80 people at a time, where you're all trying to come together for, like I say, that ultimate goal of keeping people moving across the network. But we're all dealing with little parts of it, and so our goals are all slightly different. We all come from different backgrounds. Our experience is different. Obviously, maybe how long we've been in the role, but also what we were doing before. And of course, working with people is a funny thing. Like, everyone has different communication styles, different listening abilities. How they handle pressure is entirely different. So it's kind of important to know how to handle this environment well, because you can either sink or swim in it. So
because it's tough, isn't it? It's really tough. And I think when you see the Rock, because obviously we were invited down to have a look at the hub, and you're right, there's loads of people doing loads of different things. So I suppose that you mentioned about communication, what's the most important thing, do you think, when it comes to you being ready to communicate and for you to communicate well to everyone that you need to in that moment? What's the most important thing for you in that space?
I think for me is, I always think about your communication being effective. We can all just communicate and say what needs to be said, but how you deliver it, who you kind of direct it towards and how responsive and receptive they are normally comes from you and your delivery. And it's also built on trust, isn't it? Whether or not obviously me being new to the environment, and when you're new and you're training, as I was when I joined back in September, is people don't know you, people don't know how you're going to communicate, how you work. So my big thing was learning from the people that I needed to communicate with. I kind of started with, what is it you need from me in my role? How best do I need to communicate for you to get the best out of yourself, and for me to deliver the information that you need, promptly, on time? What are the things you need me to say? So I was very much like an observer when I started, and obviously you try and see what works well and what doesn't. But I've always been very big on asking the questions to say, right, what can I do differently? What do you need from me? Because how else do I know how to do the best in my role and deliver what I need to, unless people tell me what it is they need? And everyone works differently as well. So I try and pick apart from different people that I talk to, not just talk to one person, but talk to multiple people and say, what does it mean, say, for what does, say, a good incident controller look like to you in your job role? So that for me is the biggest thing, is kind of my delivery and the trust that I build with people, to be honest.
Because that's the bit that's going to get people to, as you say, trust you, and trust is the foundation of everything, right? And I suppose when you're thinking about, you never know when an incident's going to happen either. So how do you get ready, or how do you prep yourself if something like, I don't know, it's not the bat phone, I'm not saying that, but that call comes in, how do you, and you're the first responder to it, for instance, how do you get ready and deal with all of that adrenaline that's running around your body in that moment, because you've got to react somehow to whatever might be on the end of that phone, right? So how do you prep for that, something like that?
I think for me, it's very important to, in my environment, there's 3 of us in our roles that cover the Southeast. So for me, first and foremost is about sharing the load, because sometimes, like you say, you don't never know when that call's going to happen, and sometimes you're dealing with you might already have a failed train on the network that you're trying to work around. You might have an incident at a level crossing and some barriers are down or they're up, and you're trying to get trains safely across that crossing, and then all of a sudden you might have a call with a concern for welfare, or sadly a fatality on the network, and so that might all be happening on your little patch of the railway. And so you've got to learn very quickly how to, both delegate, but also prioritise your information in this environment, because there is only us three, and sometimes we might all be dealing with something all at the same time.
Sure.
And so you've got to go, right, what is the priority? And so I kind of work in having things in the back of my mind of when I'm working in that moment, thinking sometimes about the worst case scenario. Sometimes it's kind of how I'm wired, is that I think, right, what would I do if this happens now? What's the worst case? Because if I'm prepped for that, I can kind of manage everything below that. And sometimes obviously that can waste in when you start thinking like that, it can waste some energy, because you think you're thinking through things that might not happen. But I've always found it best for myself that I know what happens then, what is going to happen, and kind of how to react to that situation when it does happen.
Okay.
I think personally, I've kind of always I've always been quite a patient person, but also always kind of working on that patience, because your patience is tested in different environments, isn't it? And with different people.
Really is. Yeah, definitely.
But that kind of helps in that situation, because I can kind of deal with a high level of stress. But how I kind of handle that is by, I think you have to just take each thing as it comes in front of you, and deal with the matter at hand, and not get overloaded with the what ifs, because in our environment and in our job, you can only go on what you know, and there can be a lot of pressure from different parties in the room as to, well, what if this happens, what if that happens? And as much as, like I say, I might be preparing for that, I have to go, right, let's deal with what's in front of us and tackle one thing at a time. But again, it kind of comes back to the teamwork, doesn't it? If you know that you can you can share the load with other people, and know that you can trust other people in their role to do the best in their job, then you're going to be able to tackle a task more effectively when it is one of these bigger incidents.
Yeah, I know. And I think that's, I love the fact that you're saying, you've got to deal with what's in the now, because a lot of that is, I love the mental prep, absolutely, because then we're sort of ready as much as we can be. But until you know what it is, you don't know what you need, right? So, but I suppose you mentioned that you've always had this level of ability to communicate, to have patience. Where's that come from for you? What's your experience that has enabled you to be level-headed in that moment, or calm in that moment, or really aware of how you're communicating your message to others, so that people will then do the right thing when you need them to at the right time? Where's that come from, do you think, with you? Where have you learned that?
I think when I was growing up, my granddad was an extremely patient person, and my nan was not a very patient person. So I saw both sides of it.
You saw both sides.
And I kind of always took on board my granddad's kind of attitude to things, and saw how the calmness of him and the patience of him, and what it brought to a situation, and how positive it was having people around him that were maybe people in my family a little bit more filled with anxiety and worry. And even for myself, I grew up quite an overthinker. I used to worry about a hell of a lot that hadn't already happened, might happen. And so I wasted a lot of time and emotion on that. And I kind of got to the age of like 20, and I thought, do I really want to? I saw, I think, firsthand how it was affecting my relationships. And I thought, is this how kind of I want to be? So I kind of, one thing I always point back to is a conversation with sort of my nan talking about some of her family, and saying that when we spoke about maybe the negative qualities of other people in the family, it was, well, that's just how they are. And so I always pin back to that and I remember asking, well, what do you mean that's just how they are? Like, that's then it for them. You know what I mean? Like, as in they've got this personality that they're born with, or they grow up with. They get to an adult, and then that's it. Is it for forever? That's just, they never kind of work. So I always kind of, it's the one thing that I always come back to in myself of like, well, we don't have to be how we are. We can work on these things about ourselves.
True.
And if we want to, but it all comes from within, doesn't it? Do we want to change these things about ourselves, or do we actually just want to kind of, yes, accept who we are, but even accept the negative traits and say, oh, well, okay, I've had feedback about that, but actually I'm going to do nothing about it.
Yeah.
So I've always been very big on like my own self-development and looking for feedback from other people. I think my kind of attitude towards pressure and potentially my resilience is kind of comes a lot from I lost my dad 5 years ago to suicide.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And that obviously turned my life upside down. And mentally, was a hell of a lot to work through. And still is, of course. It's a massive thing for me, every day of my life. But when something like that happens to you and you're filled with so much grief and, questions and hurt and anger, and of course, just ultimate sadness that your life has changed. I was only 24 when that happened. I'm 29 now. And, I got to a point where I just thought, do I want to be a person who is just sort of shaped and all I'm seen as is the person who's lost his dad to suicide?
Right.
And it's kind of given me, along with him sort of losing a lot of people in my family at a young age, it's given me this attitude towards life of, I keep in the forefront of my mind how precious like life is and the day-to-day and how short life can be. Losing so many people at a young age can kind of do that to you. And as much as some people might find it morbid, I kind of use it to its advantage of thinking, you never know what days you last. So actually, let's be positive. Let's look at what we do have and not what we don't have. And again, I suppose maybe it's a coping mechanism as well in my grief and in myself, to find the positives of things. But it's the day-to-day. People always say, you've got 100 problems until like you have health as a problem, and then that's your only problem.
Oh yes, that's true.
And I try to bear that in mind even in the day-to-day while you have it. People say that, but people don't reflect on it, do they? Until unfortunately, they become ill or they sadly die or whatever.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of thought to myself, well, let's actually have the mindset of, well, I'll be grateful that I've got a roof over my head. That I'm alive and well and I've got 2 feet to walk around on and I can hold things, I can do things, I can go out, enjoy the sun. It might sound silly to some people, but I think if we were all maybe focused on what we do have in life and those little things, we would be happier people. Obviously, I've seen the worst of what there is to sort of come out of life as well. But with that, I suppose what I'm trying to get at with then bringing it back to work is how when you have that attitude, the big problems at work and in a work environment, when people haven't maybe had those things happen to them in their life, the little things are massive things to them. So even these big incidents at work, I kind of take as they are problems that can be solved and we can work around. It isn't the end of the world. For me, I can only draw on my own experience. The worst thing in my life that has happened to me. Everything else is solvable and we can work around and do something about. So as much as these situations do, of course, still create pressure within me and you have to work to time constraints and get a job done ultimately. I see it as that's how I kind of manage that level of stress of like, well, we can only do what we can do. And let's pull together, get through this problem and not let it just completely overwhelm us and stop us from the task at hand.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. I mean, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that, because that's a one tough situation to find yourself in. And the fact that your mindset towards it is just that gratitude that actually taking one day at a time, we don't know when, let's make the most of it. Let's look at what we have got, not what we haven't got. I mean, that is, for a 24-year-old to have that happen to now, how has that changed you in a way that enabled you to be there for others? As you said, you deal with what's in front of you, you make it the best. But then I suppose, how do you deal with it in that moment and help others get through it, as you said? Because not everybody would have experienced what you have, and therefore they might just freeze, or they just might run away from whatever's going on. But obviously you're bringing it back to, we have got an incident to deal with, we've got something that a problem we can solve one way or another. So how does that help you now in your role?
I think it's helped me in my role now, in that I think through sharing my own kind of belief and my own outlook, and keeping communication at the forefront of what I do, I think kind of really helps me to, I like to think, be successful in the workplace and be a good team member and a good teammate to my colleagues. Through that experience, how do you get through that grief on your own? Well, you don't. You need to communicate with people. You need to share it. You need to take that load off yourself. I mean, I went and sort of joined a bereavement group for people bereaved by suicide. It's called Survivors of Bereavement by Suicide, or it's SOBS for short. So I've been going to that since when would it have been? January 22, after I lost my dad in June 21. And now I'm actually a volunteer there myself. And I think it's, for me, it's, even with that, it's important to kind of share your own experience in how do I say this? I think when I joined SOBS, the biggest thing for me that kept me going was seeing people on the other side, people that had been there for years and had kept them going. And that was my, my own sort of motivation and positive outlook to say, look, they've got through this, I can get through this. They're still here, they're working through their grief. And so that kind of changed my, my outlook on a lot. And then I wanted to kind of give back. And even now, bringing it back to, I suppose, the workplace, is not letting it define me in me being angry or down, but actually showing other people my attitude and my outlook on things might actually have a turn on other people, perhaps, you never know the
impact you're having, right?
You don't. And until you kind of share your own story, it can be quite vulnerable, but people can't appreciate why or how you're working unless you actually kind of draw on that experience and tell them a little bit about yourself. It's quite hard, isn't it? It's really difficult to be vulnerable and tell people what's hurt you, what you've been through, and for fear of you don't know how that person's going to react, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose because you have worked through that, and you're right, we're all still working through it, but the fact that you are able to, I suppose, showcase people that it's okay to talk about how you're feeling and that you're sad, upset, grieving, whatever. How do you encourage those maybe that are coming into your where you volunteer now, and they haven't had that space ever before to talk about what's gone on for them? How do you encourage them to feel safe, I suppose, to communicate with you, trust you in that moment? Because I know, you've been through it, you've lived that experience, but how do you create that space for people to feel okay to start opening up and be a bit more vulnerable? What is it that you do?
I think you have to create a changed attitude in your workplace, don't you?
Right.
You have to be the kind of, it can sound a bit cliche, but that change that you want to see. How are people going to feel safe to open up to you unless you create that environment for them? So for me, I've always been big on asking people how they're doing, asking people how they are, actually genuinely listening and taking on board what they're saying.
Thing, right?
Not how often and we're all guilty of it at some point or another. We're waiting to talk rather than actually listening and taking on board what that person is saying.
Absolutely.
That's something I'm very conscious about. I think unless you actually care to that level, but it's really difficult because in my environment you can have the attitude of you're just a small cog in a major system, and of course I'm one person with over 40,000 people working in Network Rail. Of course,
and that's without passengers and everything else.
And that's without passengers, of course. That's just us as a company. And you can think, what difference am I going to make, right? or you can kind of have the attitude of, well, why not me? Why can't it be me that changes the attitude of that team? And again, it kind of comes back to that positive mindset of saying, well, if it's not me, then who is it? Because I've worked as part of, I suppose, lots of teams over the last 10 years that maybe haven't communicated effectively, and had people that were good listeners or set good examples. And so I always thought, well, why can't it be me? Almost like that mentorship within the team. Someone that is actually going to listen and care. And I suppose that might come from a place of, I didn't always have that, both in my own situation from losing my dad, and have people that were kind of there and listen when I needed to be, when I needed them to be, sorry. So I kind of think of myself and how much I was maybe struggling and not communicating, and how badly I just wanted people to ask and listen. And so I think, well, I don't want anyone else to go through that like I have gone through. And if I can use that experience myself to help other people, it's one less person suffering.
Absolutely. It's tough, isn't it?
Sorry.
I say it's really hard sometimes, isn't it, for people to open up. But as you're saying, if you're creating that space because you do genuinely care, I suppose the question that popped into my head then was, for you then, what's the difference between, I suppose, that empathy, understanding it, walked in their shoe, blah, blah, as opposed to sympathy for things that have gone wrong? How do you differentiate between that? Because loads of people always speak to me about their mind health and mental health. They go, oh, yeah, but that person, and it's more sympathy than empathy or understanding. So how do you cope with that?
I've kind of, and I know I'm talking a lot about grief here. So apologies for that. But, no, when it comes to, say, grief, for instance, I've always had the attitude of, in this country in particular, I have the attitude of, like, people see grief as like a problem that needs to be solved and not lived with. So with that, if you change that attitude, rather than, maybe trying to compare yourself and bring yourself into the situation because you think maybe that's what the relatability that someone needs, it's more about actually being the open ear and saying, even if like you're touching on in terms of, have I not been through that? I can't empathise with it because I've not been through it, but I can sympathise with it. That's where the listening part really comes in.
100%,
But I think people, generally speaking, people think that they can't care or be there for someone unless they've been through it themselves. And don't always know the right things to say. You have to have the attitude of just asking questions, is my belief, you know, and actually just asking, giving someone the space to actually talk about what they need to, rather than thinking, oh, what they need to hear is that I've been through this as well. And let me talk about my experience because that will encourage them to open up. When actually,
the last thing.
Exactly. In my experience, it's been the last thing. It puts me off. I think you're making it about you. It's now not about me. I'll now listen, and therefore I won't talk about what I'm going through.
Exactly. And they think they've helped you. You're right. I mean, in the world that I work in, you hear that a lot, where you go, you just haven't listened to that. You haven't given them the space to just talk. As you said, whether you've lived the experience or not, it's that ability to then know, well, what do I do with that information? So, because it's heavy stuff sometimes. I'm sure you must have heard stories that have just blown your mind. How do you deal with the, not the aftermath, that's the wrong word. How do you deal with it yourself so that you're not taking it all on? Because that's one of the biggest things, isn't it? It's not yours to carry, is what I always say. But how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's quite a difficult one, I suppose. It is very difficult. How do I deal with that? I mean, you have to have the separation of what you can and can't control, and know what is within your limits, and have you done all that you can do within your capability. So, whether it be coming from work and thinking, have I done everything I can to manage that situation to the best of my ability? And come away from it with a clear mind, to going and obviously volunteering at my bereavement group and saying, that they're going through what they're going through, but of course we all, have our own life, our own grief, our own thoughts and feelings and stresses of the day-to-day life, finances, work, like I say, grief, whatever it may be. And you have to manage that. You can't there's only so much you can do for everyone without it then affecting you.
Sure.
If you take it away yourself, and I have done that, and I've come away from groups and work
Sort of
or
plays on your
personally.
mind sometimes, doesn't it? There's some, every now and again, there's certain people, isn't it, that just, you can't shake that. And that tells you something in itself, though, doesn't it?
It does. And I think it's important to act on that. And for the people that you do, and the situations that do really need your attention, you need to, give them that and reach out or ask the questions. But there's certain things where you go, right, what is it I can personally do about this situation? You can't control other people's feelings and emotions.
No.
That's one thing, I suppose, like, I'd done a lot growing up, was trying to think I can impact that person's their thoughts, their emotions, and if I work hard enough and ask hard enough, and I can do this and do that, I will help them. And I suppose I've seen firsthand myself how actually all that worry and all that attempt and all that trying, you are, for want of a better phrase, like, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't force them to drink it, can you? You can do all you can do.
Yeah.
But the overthinking, I suppose, and the worry that caused me, you have to draw that line and go, right, it's now not on me, it's on that person, or it's on that situation. In the same way, like me on my shifts, I work 12-hour shifts, and you work the 12 hours and someone comes in and hands over from you, and you have to say, right, I find it difficult because I like seeing things through till the end.
I bet,
and I'm like, right, I've got to walk away here and say, I've done everything I can do up until now. Now it's up to you.
And that's back to trusting that person to do it their way, because they've got the experience to do it. I love that, because that, I suppose, comes back to what you were saying. Is that the life I've been dealt with? Like you're saying, listen to your nan, your granddad being a massive influence by the sounds of it as well on, what to consider, what to think about. But I think it's really, I just love the fact that you're saying, there is a line. You can only take people so far. And as you said earlier, the choice is then up to them. Like you said, you had a choice way back when to either go one way or the other. And you, for whatever reason, chose to go, no, actually life's more than this. And I'm grateful for what I have got. And I just think that is so refreshing to hear. And I suppose what if you were to look back now, based on what you've experienced, learned, developed, you're still evolving, you're still learning, we are all still learning. What would you say to your younger self? Based on what you know now?
I think I would probably sort of tell myself that, you can't, what would I say?
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? What would I say? To yourself? Yeah. Because you probably think about it. Yeah.
I would want to tell myself, be a bit prouder of yourself in what you're doing, and actually think you are doing more than what you think you are. You're not maybe getting enough gratitude for all you are doing.
Okay.
And you can't control other people's emotions. Know when to draw the boundary a bit better, because in my life, it's probably done me a disservice for myself, my own kind of mental health, for kind of trying to fix everyone else's problems and trying to do too much and taking on too much pressure and mental load myself, and kind of going, not everything is your problem to solve.
No, that's very true. Yeah. It's hard though, isn't it? When you sort of get used to doing it. So what do you do to release that? I mean, I know when we did the exercise in the room, we were sort of offloading the pressure. But I suppose, what do you do outside of work and the volunteering? What else do you do to make sure that you come back to you and yourself, you're grounded again and you're ready to go? What do you do?
I like to get out and sort of take myself outside and just go for a walk. Very simple, but I always say to my wife about, like, getting outside of the four walls, the four constraints at home. We're all guilty of coming home and you can switch on the telly and sit there, and then you might not say two words to each other, and you go to bed and that's that. Yeah. Our experience is, you go out and all of a sudden your mind is free, you're thinking, and that the distractions are lifted for one. But the subconscious mental confines of the four walls that you sit that you kind of sit in between, go away, and all of a sudden your mind wanders and you think and talk about different things that you wouldn't. And whether that's, you know, sharing the load and talking about your day and getting that off your chest, or how you're thinking or feeling. But even for me, even to kind of take the headphones out and actually just go out for a walk and have a think, I think it's important to ground yourself and actually think about how we're feeling, and let our minds wander. We have so many distractions now, don't we? From work, life, phones in front of us, TV in front of us. And how often now do we actually take 30 minutes, an hour to actually just let our minds wander and explore and think about how we're feeling and how things are making us feel, or
Oh my God, it's just been fascinating. I love it. So we could chat for ages. We'll probably have to get you back again to talk about more about it. But if you were to give our listeners and our people that are watching us on YouTube a call to action based around healthy coping mechanisms, what would your consideration for them be? What would be your call to action?
My call to action would be look at the negatives and the positives of how you are dealing with situations. Ask for feedback on what you're doing and how you're working. It's a very difficult thing for people to do, and sometimes and want to take on the negatives. But I think if you actually want to cope better at work, it will probably help you to understand maybe what you're not doing so well, because you might be looking for more feedback on maybe you're not getting the praise you deserve at work, or that you're not working successfully, or that communication skills aren't what they should be, or that even from your team, maybe they're not reacting to you how you need them to, and you're not working as well as you can, they're not working as well with you. So kind of dropping your own ego and that mask to say, right, can you tell me what am I doing wrong here? What could I do better in my role? What could I do for you to help you? That in itself can create some a healthier working environment, and bridge that trust and communication between two people that or you and your team, where then actually you'll be able to naturally develop healthier coping mechanisms, because all of a sudden the things that are maybe stresses at work or problems at work now won't be, through that kind of lifting of that fear and asking the difficult questions.
I think you're right. I think, and everything you've said, actually, listening, communicating, asking, being curious, because we're not the done deal, are we? And we all need to learn, but having that, I suppose having the open-mindedness, open mind to even accept that you're willing to hear it and then change and do something about it. But again, like you said, it's a choice, right? As you said, we can give somebody that feedback, but if they don't want to, then it's really tough, isn't it? But and that's the bit you go, well, I can do no more. I've said my piece, and go from there. But Tom, how do people reach out to you? Because you've obviously got such a wealth of experience, and I know we've only sort of spent 25, 30 minutes chatting to you about a huge topic. And we definitely want you to come back, because we could go into so many rabbit holes, but I think we'd still be here like 4 hours later.
And I have to apologise, because I feel like maybe, through my own maybe grief and my own experience, that's kind of led into healthy coping mechanisms. But I'm kind of a little bit afraid that I haven't answered the questions maybe as directly as what I should have done.
You don't ever have that fear. You've definitely done that, because I think what it's done, it's brought the realness to it. And the way, what I've loved is the way your brain has been processing and then linking it back all the time. So don't apologise for not answering. You have definitely answered all the questions that, and sort of shared your experience. So thank you. I appreciate that enormously from you. But how do people find you if they want to find out a bit more, not just about how you got to where you've got to in work, but you got involved outside of work and volunteering, and the importance of getting out of the four walls and talking and communicating well. How might people reach out to you?
People can reach out to me on Instagram, or I'd be more than happy to put my sort of my email or something in your about the podcast or whatever. My Instagram is Tom Curcher, CURCHER. People can feel free to reach out to me on there, ask me any questions or any advice on anything. And same with email, if people wanted to reach out to that and have a conversation, I'm very open, you know, and happy to sort of help or talk to anyone that would appreciate it. Yeah, of course.
I appreciate that. And we'll put the link to SOBS as well, because I think the more people that have an awareness of there is help out there, and there are places you can go that feel safe enough to talk about whatever it is you've experienced, right? Make sure there's a link that goes out to them as well, because I just want to say a huge thank you for your time and for sharing stuff that's been really tough. And I really, really appreciate that, because you don't always get people sharing that stuff. And for us, we need to hear it more, I think, to know that it's okay. And as you said, we do come out the other end. And as we always talk about resilience, we just come out maybe stronger, wiser, and more able. I don't think we're fixed, but it's that, which is how we always describe resilience. And just to hear you, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. And I really appreciate you giving us your time today, Tom.
No, thanks very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share and answer some questions. Thanks very much for your time.
Oh my God, I appreciate that. We'll get you back to talk about the importance of feedback. I think that's the best one.
Yeah. No, I would love to. Anytime.
Wow. Thank you so much, Tom. Well, thank you. Have a really good evening. Thank you.
And you take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So, Laura, what did you think?
Oh, I mean, Tom, he's a wise soul, isn't he? Only 29 years old.
Yeah, wow. Incredible, with such wisdom and calmness and just that whole mindset. It was incredible I felt a real privilege having a conversation with him around it. And I know you had a conversation with him in the room on the day as well. But yeah, amazing, incredible.
Yeah. And then especially when you hear people rolling their eyes and going, oh, young people these days, they don't have the resilience or the skills. And you think, well, listen to Tom, because that's what wise words that he shared with us. And I think, I know you already shared the call to action in terms of community. So maybe refresh us on that. So if there were a call to action, Debs, that you would suggest for anyone for whom this episode has resonated with.
I think for me, it was all about surrounding yourself with the people that you know are going to support you and the community feel, and knowing that you're not alone in this. I think it's worth its weight in gold. And whether that is family or friends or people around you or outside organisations that are there to support you, I would definitely build that community around you. That would be my call to action.
Yeah, excellent. And my share the secret would be, if you know someone with whom is dealing with either some grief that they're handling or some other big setback, and I think listening to Tom, it's having that courage and that confidence to have conversations. And also, I think listening to Tom say how he found it reassuring going to the SOBS community and seeing there are other people who'd experienced similar things to him and who were on the other side of it, and how comforting he found that. So I just massive thanks to Tom for sharing that with us and taking the time to have that amazing conversation with you. And thank you, Tom. And whoever gets to have you leading and working alongside in a day-to-day environment, lucky them, because I bet they've learned so much from you.
Definitely. I'm with you on that one, Laura. And it was brilliant. So I'm looking forward to our next conversation that we're going to have as well. So I hope you're thinking about your healthy coping mechanisms for this week, Laura. And I look forward to catching up with you next week.
Yeah. Right. See you at the next one, Debs.
See you next
Love
one.
you.
Love you. Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at contact@secretsfromacoach.com or follow us on Insta or Facebook. If you're a Spotify listener, give us a rating, as it's easier for people to find us. And if you want to know more, visit our website, www.secretsfromacoach.com, and sign up for our newsletter. Here to cheer you on and help you thrive in the ever-changing world of work.